Alright, hi everyone. This video is going to go through assembling your Do Nothing machine and also changing some of the appearances of the components. So first we want to double check and make sure that our base is grounded. You'll see this little push pin. If you don't see that, you can right click on it and make sure to hit ground, and it'll make the base stay put. So if I click and kind of drag, this one doesn't move. But if I move any of the other ones, or I click and drag any of our other shapes, it'll let me move it. They all have their degrees of freedom. All 6 of their degrees of freedom are still free for all of these extra pieces. Our grounded one has 0 degrees of freedom. It is stuck. All right, so what we want to do first, we'll actually go through and do the appearance first if you want. So really briefly, you have a couple options on how to do this. You can right click on something in the browser and hit appearance. You can right click on something in your actual view panel and hit appearance. It truly depends on what you're trying to do. In this case, let's say I wanted to do the entire thing. We're going to do appearance here, and this kind of allows us to select entire components at once instead of just the one little surface I had clicked. So in here we have a big drop down menu, a big set of folders that has a bunch of different materials. You can go through and click on them and find ones that you want in here, or you can search. Let's say I was searching for a specific color. I can open up blue and click and find any of the ones in here. If you notice a little download, you would have to download it before you can use it. For our case here, not really something we need to worry about it. We can click and drag and bring it over to whatever shape we want to change the color or material of. So let's say I want it now red. I could click and drag and just drop it onto whatever shape. So you can pick whatever colors you feel like. This is just real quick to show how to change the appearance. Once you have the colors the way you want, you can close it, and then we have our components here. All right, second thing we need to do, we need to make copies of 2 of our components. So our slider, we need 2, and our slider pin, we need 2. Okay, we can come over to slider in the browser and right click. All right, there's technically a couple ways to do this too. I usually just like to copy and then Control V to paste. We can just continue. It'll remove our extra piece here. All right, now if we click and drag, we have 2. So same thing with our slider pin. Okay, I'm just gonna copy. You can right click and paste if you wanted to, or just Control V and paste. I'm gonna leave it where it is right now. I'm gonna hit OK. Oh, come on. And then I can click and drag it away from where it was. From here, now we need to start creating joints. So the joints change the relationships between the shapes that you have. There are lots of different kinds. If you're in my class, we'll talk a little bit about those in detail. And here I'll at least try and go through the ones we're going to use. So our first thing we're going to want to, I usually like to do the sliders first. With a joint, you're basically clicking 2 dots, 2 points that need to have a relationship. So I'm going to zoom pretty far in so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And for our first slider here, you see how the little circle changes planes depending on where your cursor is. So like this one's parallel to the top plane. If I move it again, this one is parallel to the front plane. Okay, so that's kind of the one we want, where it's parallel to this trapezoid shape, okay, and it's along this bottom line. All right, so sometimes that can be tricky. You need to make sure when you move your cursor that that's the one that you're getting. Okay, I'm going to zoom out, and now I'm going to make the same point, okay, but on this corner here. All right, so it's going to wind up kind of on the front. Oop. We're going to click, and the piece is going to move into place. All right, just in case, sometimes you might have to flip. Okay, so if it wound up a different direction, you might have to flip it, you might have to rotate it. It truly depends on sometimes where you click for the joints. It has its own ideas on where you're going. So currently we have the 2 spots, we have it where we want it to be. The next piece is we need to change what motion type it is. Right now we're in rigid, which means it doesn't move at all. We need to put this as a slider, because it is a slider. It's going to move along a single axis. Okay, it's going to play, it's going to show you what it's going to try and do, and that is correct, so we can hit OK. So now, if we click and drag this, it can only go in this one direction. It cannot go anywhere else. All right, we now only have 1 degree of freedom here. All right, once you have your slider joint on the first slider, we need to do the same thing on the second one. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the joint, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select my line and make sure I get the end of that line. All right, then I'm going to zoom back out and pan. So I'm clicking and moving my scroll wheel. All right, and then we're going to do the same over here. All right, when we click those 2 spots, this one I have actually set in a different motion, so let's go back and change this. We need this to be a slider, and it should do the sliding motion that we need. All right, now we can hit OK and zoom back out a little bit. And now we need to do something very similar with our handle and the sliders. So we're going to choose our joint tool again. Okay, this time we're going to choose the top of our slider. I'm going to pan and orbit a little bit so that I can see the bottom of the handle, and we're going to choose the bottom here. This, we want to have a revolute joint type. So I'm going to click revolute, and if you notice, it starts to rotate around the handle. It's okay if you notice the slider jumped away from where it was. Once we hit OK, it'll jump back to where it was before. Okay, we need to do the same thing for the secondary slider. So right now we can move this a little bit if we wanted to. So I'm going to move it a bit just so there's some space and we can actually click the right surface. We're going to choose joint. I'm going to click again now on the top of this slider. All right, and then we're going to orbit. Choose the bottom of this one. Make sure we have it as revolute. We're going to hit OK. So now I'm going to go back to my home view, and we have pretty close to what we need. So our last bit is actually putting all the pins in, and those are going to be rigid joints. So we're going to choose joint. We're going to go back to motion and hit rigid. So rigid is as if we kind of glued it together so everything's stuck. Okay, and then for position, we need to actually choose the pieces we need. So the handle pin is going on the furthest out, the hole out here. Okay, so I'm going to choose the, well, I guess we could do it a couple ways. Here, let's do it. I'm going to orbit a little bit, and we'll choose the bottom as I say it, and immediately don't do it. We'll choose the bottom surface of our handle and the bottom surface of our pin. Okay, again, it moves it for now. We hit OK, it snaps back into place. All right, now for our slider pins, it's pretty similar. We're going to do a joint. All right, we're going to click on the top of our handle, and instead of the bottom, all right, I want to choose kind of the circle right underneath. Okay, so either of these two, see where my cursor is, either of these two will work. Okay, it's snapping over. We're gonna hit OK. And then we have one more. So since we're already over here, we're gonna hit joint. Okay, we're gonna choose our bottom circle here. I'm gonna go back to our home view. We're gonna choose the top here. It should move over and snap, and we can hit OK. So now we want to double check and make sure that everything works as intended. All right, making sure that our base is grounded, I'm going to click and grab onto this pin, right? And as I move my cursor around, our two sliders should slide back and forth, okay? And our handle will spin around the pins that are in the sliders. The way to animate this, at least for the purposes of showing it as a demo, we can actually right click on the Revolute and hit animate, and it will automatically move it around the way we would in real life. And on that note, that is it for the assembly portion of our Do Nothing machine. Make sure to save your file, and that's it for now.